Heated Rivalry is a global sensation. Does that mean Canada can make a hit TV show?
Maybe, but do they all have to be about gay hockey players?
No, but Richard, there's lots of other sports. But
What?
seriously, I've been thinking about it. Imagine a gay Beachcombers reboot.
Ooh, I'm thinking sexy relic.
Let's get into it.
Well, we took a couple of weeks off. We're back. Nice to see you. You're looking well rested.
So are you? And I got a whole new setup here. I decided to move it out to the living room. So,
Oh, well,
how were your holidays?
Well, my holidays were fine, except that I worked through them mostly. I became, while you were on a 60-hour train ride, which I really want to hear about, I was playing Walter Cronkite on the iHeartRadio network, and I put aside all the pop culture stuff, and I was literally interviewing members of CSIS. I was talking politics. I was doing all the stuff that I don't do anywhere else. And it was a blast. It was a lot, 3 hours a day, national radio, but it was super fun. And it was this weird kind of feeling to be able to talk to the country and have them respond. There's a text board. People could call in. And I always say radio just feels so immediate in a way that so many other things just don't. I've done a ton of live television, and it just doesn't feel the same as when you're on the radio, you say something, and you see that phone line light up right away. And you know either someone's irate or they're really happy with what you just said. The thing that really irked the most people is we were talking with the guy who's an editor-in-chief of a new Canadian dictionary coming out. And he's upset that Prime Minister Mark Carney is using British spellings that go beyond the OUR, like in humor and color and that kind of thing. And he wants to try and standardize it into a more Canadian way. And I said that because my mother was American, I grew up with a lot of Americanisms because she taught me the alphabet, and I say Z instead of Z. It just sounds right in my head when I say it. I say restroom, and that's the thing that pushed people over the edge. Of all the stuff that we did that week, I think we did 60 segments. All, politics and all opinion and that sort of thing. The word restroom, bing, 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 really, really got under people's skin.
What is the qualm?
Well, it's American, apparently.
Well, but why that particular one?
I don't know. Maybe I wasn't supposed to be talking about washrooms or bathrooms or restrooms on the radio. Maybe they didn't want that. But mostly it was because I used the word restroom, an American style word, to instead of toilet.
People don't like they've been like, no, I hate that. It should be restroom or washroom, whatever. Toilet. I'll straight up say, where's the head in this place? That's why.
Well, I also became a great uncle over the last little while, and for Christmas, what I realize now is you really have to spoil the youngest member of the family, and that is my new great nephew Colson. But the thing that I did is I couldn't find what I thought were cool onesies for babies, and so I had some made, and they're all David Bowie themed, which
Oh my God.
fits if you know me. And the quote that I put on one of them, which I think is so great for a baby, is an actual David Bowie quote where he says, "I don't know where I'm going from here, but all I know is that it won't be boring." And I thought, what a perfect thing to put on a onesie for a baby.
Listen, that kid already has more cred than most people I encounter.
So you were on a train for 60 hours.
And here's the thing. So that was one way. Then we came back. So that's 120 hours, and we were there for like a week.
Did you go to Thailand? Does it take 60 hours to get to Thailand on a train? Where did you go?
That's the thing. We went to Edmonton. So it's actually a beautiful, listen, it's a lot, but it's a bucket list thing. I suggest to anybody to do it.
Yeah.
It's called the Canadiana, and it goes from Union Station in Toronto, which is very cool. We just took the subway, and then we were at the station, and then all of a sudden you take off, and then you go up to Sudbury. And then from Sudbury, it goes to like through the Canadian Shield, which is just, it's so remote and so untouched. Like I kind of thought it would travel along the highway, like on the side, beside the highway, but it goes way more north than that. And you are just like this tiny little train, and right beside you on either side is forest, like millions of trees. And because the snow was on, you know, when like a branch gathers the snow and it like forms in a beautiful way. So it was like that for as far as the eye could see. And you're just like in this quiet train. It's very romantic, very cinematic. And the thing is, we stop in Edmonton because our family is in Alberta, but the best part is what I hear. So I'm going to have to do it again from Edmonton to Vancouver. So then you're going through like Jasper and the mountains, and everybody says that's amazing. But I'm a Canadian Shield girly, so I was quite satisfied. I really felt like I was going to see a Yeti. I saw a wolf. We saw and you know what? In some renditions of this story, I think I will have seen a Yeti.
Yeah.
Depending
Oh,
on who
just
I'm
wait a year or two, and then you tell the story, and be like, "Oh yeah, no, I mentioned the Yeti. Did I not mention the Yeti?"
Now that I think about it, so it's an incredible experience.
Did you ever feel like really isolated, like the sort of Overlook Hotel Shining kind of vibe while you're in the Canadian Shield, and there's just nothing really around for like miles, I would imagine.
Oh, the whole thing is like that. So when I say cinematic, there is a kind of like eerie underside. We were in economy because it was sold out too for like the sleeper cars. So we're just like out there. Like you get a lot more space than a plane, but it's like days on this train, and you like get to know people. People come on and off. I swear it is the most zany like group of people who are taking the train as well. I can say that because I was on that train. So I'm part of this group of zany individuals. Yeah. Oh, and get this. Okay. So we are coming back. It's New Year's Eve. We were going to be originally on the train during New Year's, but because of delays, there's always delays, by the way. We are in the Winnipeg Via Rail Station, which is this gorgeous old, like beautiful building with like, you know, columns, and there's this picture that I'm like, look at that, The Shining picture. It looks like that picture of the group of people partying in The Shining. It looks exactly like that. We do the countdown there with everyone in the train. Everybody's blowing their little things. Very cute. We go up. It's a picture of people on New Year's Eve in like 1919 that he celebrated right there in that building. So also kind of spooky, great, magic, but like haunted for sure. So I'm going into 2026 with like a lot of energy.
Well, I hadn't noticed. I am glad that it didn't turn into like Murder on the Orient Express or anything like that. It didn't turn into an Agatha Christie story for you. So while you were away, you watched, some movies and things. Did you watch Heated Rivalry?
Well, here's the thing. Speaking of sexy, I sure did. Speaking of sexy lines, for research, obviously, I watched it very closely. I'm a fan. I think it deserves its sensational status, you know? But what really excited me about it too is that it's like pretty simple too, though. It's groundbreaking, but it's not untangible, unreachable. Have you seen any of it?
I have. And it was interesting that when it first started, when the first episode came out, it was so kind of controversial, and everyone was talking about it. It's like, oh, have you seen it? It's so explicit and that sort of thing. And then as the series goes on, it becomes less explicit, and it becomes this really kind of sweet story that is touched by a real gentleness to it, even though it's about hockey and, you know, everything else that goes along with that. And I think Jacob Tierney, who is the showrunner on this, adapting from a novel, has done a great job at making this something interesting and unexpected. And I think that's probably the kind of cool thing about it. It's easy to say, well, it's the gay hockey show, but it's so much more than that.
It is so much more than that. But I do think part of its success is that it also boils down to like a simple narrative concept. Heated rivalry. They're rivals, and it gets heated. And right from heated in the best ways, but also like, dynamic ways, interesting ways. These two main characters are so adorable. Like, yes, it's very horny, but it's also just very adorable.
Mm-hmm.
And as a queer person watching and someone who has advocated for this for a long time, making the story queer inherently ups the stakes. And I would love to take credit for that really succinct way of saying something that I've been trying to kind of pinpoint and argue for years. So it's a risk, but it's also really like it's a calculated risk. It feels good, normal. I love it. It's cute, and I'm here for it. But and like I said, there's no like something like Schitt's Creek. There's like this huge star power kind of anchoring that show. This doesn't really have anything that couldn't be recreated if you also had like really good source material.
I'm just surprised at how much is living at the center of popular culture. You know, Andy Cohen and Anderson Cooper on CNN on New Year's Eve talked about it endlessly. Brandy Carlisle says she's obsessed with it. Every time you turn on the Critics' Choice Awards, you know, the other night on the red carpet, they talked about it, over and over and over again. This is a Canadian television show that has really kind of gripped people in a way that we haven't seen for a little while.
I hate to kind of prop us up so much, but we deserve it. Part of the LGBTQ plus community. And so again, it's like we will show up for these things. I want producers to, and like writers and stuff like that, execs to realize like that is part of being queer, is that we support, and that also we've been waiting for this stuff. So do it. It doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to be sensationalized. It can just be, and like people will call it out. People will appreciate it. So,
well, let's talk about some other stories, some other shows that were done in Canada that went on to become very, very popular. So we mentioned Schitt's Creek. That show took, a turn that I thought that it might. I mean, it was very funny. And, Emily Hampshire has one of the funniest lines with a throwaway line in the first or second episode where the family has moved into this crappy motel and the door doesn't work in their room. So they go up, and the first thing she says is it about the door? And something about the way she said it makes me laugh even to this day, right? There's so many other things wrong, but she knew the door would get it. So I thought, that show felt like a winner to me. And of course, it goes on to win all sorts of Emmys and that kind of thing and make stars. And it still blows my mind when, I'm somewhere outside of Toronto and I'll be in a gift shop and I'll see Dan Levy's face on a calendar or a coffee mug or a Christmas ornament or something like that.
And it is like, that's another example of, it's when it hit the States that it like, Canadians, we loved it, and we were like, yeah, it's a great show, but it was like we needed that reflection back from the States for us to really, and so also I think part of this conversation is us owning the like genius of our ideas too, and not kind of pigeonholing it is like, oh, well, it's Canadian show for Canadians. Like, Canadian shows don't have to be for Canadians. They can be like these universal shows. It can be made with American audiences in mind. Like, this is the nature of entertainment now. People find a way to watch the shows. The streaming services are all intertwined. Like, Schitt's Creek makes it to Netflix, which is like, I think probably one of the first like huge examples of that, right? And then that opens the space for more things. So I also love Schitt's Creek. The writing is smart. And like, I see with both of these shows too, they do still feel Canadian. There's like a Canadian tone, sensibility and stuff. Which I love. And again, a pretty simple concept. Rich family loses their money. Yeah. They're in a small town.
Yep. And I think that there's a couple of things that we do really well here. In a show like Orphan Black, we are able to take an idea of a clone, for instance, in this case, and put a spin on it and sort of develop it in a way that hasn't been seen before, and do something interesting with it. John Fawcett, who was the showrunner on Orphan Black, also made a movie called Ginger Snaps. And I've always admired Ginger Snaps because it takes the werewolf myth turns it on its head and turns it into like this feminist anthem of a werewolf film, and it's brilliant, and the performances are great, and that's what we do really well in this country is we take ideas that perhaps have been floating around in the zeitgeist or in the ether, and we filter them through our own sensibilities. And it may not just be a Canadian sensibility, because quite honestly, I don't really know what that is. I think that we just collectively have a different way of looking at things than the rest of the world because we are a different country. We are our own country. Look at what's happened over the last year, since last January, in the face of the 51st state talk from south of our border. We have become these rabid nationalists, and we, are elbows up, and we're doing all that kind of thing. And all of a sudden, Canadians are thinking about what it means to be Canadian. Right. I think if you look at our television and the shows that we create, you'll find it in there. It won't be really obvious. Like the Trailer Park Boys, a long-running, wildly popular show. And I mean,
I'm obsessed with the Trailer Park Boys.
So I hosted a couple of events with them that were such barn burners. They were out of control. One night at the Bloor Cinema in Toronto, which seats about 900 people, I got a phone call. We were all having dinner, and they're like, "There's a lot of people here." And I'm like, "How many people are here?" There's like 1,600 people trying to get in. And so they let 900 of them in. There were so many people on the street. And then we get in, we get on stage after we'd screened a couple of episodes of the show. And this audience was drunk. They were drunk. And
they were not just drunk.
No, they were not just drunk, but they were on fire. And it was just such a, like this kind of love in for this weird little Canadian show from, my people, from the Haligonians, the Nova Scotians. And I thought it was just such a great, this was ours. It felt like ours. We were rowdy. We were celebrating our own art. We were doing it in a way that was kind of unique. And when the thing was all over, we had to keep the Trailer Park Boys backstage because there were just too many people out front. It wasn't safe to let them go. And my favorite memory of that is walking out from the backstage into the main theater, and after everyone was cleared out of there, and all we heard were bottles rolling down the aisles because people had brought in their own liquor.
What is better than that? What is better than that? And that's such a good example. And same with Orphan Black.
Mm-hmm.
And Orphan Black, you said, oh, Ginger Snaps.
Yeah.
Like it's often on my top 4 on my Letterboxd. All of these things have something that speaks to me. Number one, filmed on location.
Yep.
In iconic Canadian cities that have a sense of place, which I think, like, if I go 20 years ago back into my undergrad days, that is a thing that they say about Canadian art, that like we have our environment, because it is inclement and cold and different, really does come into our art and our films and our TV. And so like Ginger Snaps was filmed in Brampton and surrounding GTA areas. And that's where I grew up. And it has this, like Chandler Levick's films have this sense of Ontario. And that is going to hit hard, not just to people who experience that, but to other people, because it's just like New York movies have New York vibes. LA movies have LA vibes. So I am also sick of like studio stuff. Like, let's film on location, please. Right. Please, just go out there in different cities. Heated Rivalry, we're like in Montreal, we're in Ottawa, we're in different cities.
Mark Critch shoots everything in Newfoundland and Labrador for Son of a Critch, and it feels like it. It's got that sort of Newfoundland vibe to it that really speaks to what the show is all about.
I think that's so key. And listen, we have the productions are here, the talent is here. So does this mean we've shown we can do this? And now like these filming, the infrastructure's here. Are we going to be the new epicenter? Like after like Guillermo del Toro coming to TIFF and just saying like, I love Toronto. I'm going to like buy things in Toronto. He's like making studios in Hamilton. I could see with Heated Rivalry now, like, hey, Hollywood North, right?
I call Guillermo del Toronto because of he's such a booster for the city. And what it made me think when you mentioned, the inclement weather and, how we embraced all that stuff. Over here somewhere on this bookshelf behind me is a copy of a book called Weird Sex and Snowshoes, which is all about
Yes.
Canadian movies written by the great Catherine Monk. So,
Crash.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. So
Talk
lots
about romance. That is the most romantic film of all time. In my mind, it is.
That's we'll perhaps save that breakdown for yet another podcast. Um, are we reluctant to take risks in this country? Because I don't think narratively we're reluctant to take risks, but I think that because making a film, making a television series, whatever, is very expensive. I think that's where the risk is being is being honed on. I think that's what people are afraid of. I don't think we're afraid of telling stories that have an edge to them. You mentioned, David Cronenberg, but think about all the great filmmakers that make movies here in this country, the Guy Maddens of the world and all that make movies in this country that are risky and weird and odd and find an audience because they're authentic. They're not trying to be weird. They're not setting out to be a Midnight Madness movie. They are setting out to become the kind of art that we make in this country, which is not exactly the same kind of art that they make in the United States or they make in Britain or they make anywhere else in the world. And again, because we are Canadians, we filter that through our own sensibility.
I don't see any hesitation on risk taking from the artists of Canada. That's for damn sure. And like, you kind of have to be taking risks to even get heard in an industry in which you're kind of seen as like marginalized or like niche content, right? So, but the risk aversion, I think a lot of times comes from, I can speak to the Big Brother Canada brand versus the Big Brother United States brand are two very different things, right?
How
I
so?
think execs want to be nicer than the American version of things. To them, Canadian content, and this is, you get points from the CRTC or like from funding organizations for Canadian content. And part of the point system is like Canadian values, representing like Canadian values. And I think a lot of times those Canadian values can just be so just seen in, like, for example, which is why Heated Rivalry is so smart. If you're going to pitch it as just like sex, like just a sex show that's kind of like salacious. And then at the end of the day, if these characters were like not good people, not as adorable as they are, I don't think execs in Canada are going to like necessarily sign off on that. So I do think like there is something to be said at like the through line of all these really successful films is that they have a wholesome bite, right? Or like television shows at least. Cronenberg is like, I'm going to make my own. Like, I feel like he's like, but he gets a lot of Canadian, like he's got a lot of government funding, right?
Oh, yeah, no, well, he has shot all his movies, save for one, in Toronto or in Ontario. And absolutely, there's, government money involved in his films. Well spent, as far as I'm concerned. I am a giant David Cronenberg fan. And,
Tell me everything.
Well, listen, I will tell you a few things. I will tell you that he's the funniest guy in the room when you are in a room with him. He's the smartest guy in the room. And a little while ago, I hosted the launch of the stamp for Norman Jewison, the late, great Norman Jewison. And I was one of the speakers at it. And Rick Mercer came up, of course, levels the place. It just kills. He's so funny. And then somebody else went up, and then I went up, and I really felt out of place because the speakers were Rick, me, and David Cronenberg, and the head of Canada Post. I was nervous. And so I get up and I sang from Jesus Christ Superstar because, of course, Norman Jewison directed that movie. And so I sang it. And after I walked off stage, as David Cronenberg walked on stage, he grabbed me by the arm and said, "You're the bravest man in this room." And then got up on stage and was like he'd been doing stand-up comedy for his entire career. Just absolutely slayed the room and told really heartfelt, great, funny, hilarious stories about Norman Jewison. So David Cronenberg, big fan.
I need to know though, what Jesus Christ Supersong was it? Hey Santa,
No, no,
give me
no.
a little.
Nazareth's most famous son should have stayed a great unknown. Like his father carving wood, he'd have made good. Tables, chairs, and oaken chests would have suited Jesus best. He'd have caused nobody harm, no one alarm. It goes on. And
You
when
could literally be in the musical. I can
No.
see you in the robes.
I saw the musical the first time in England on its original run, and in the 1970s when I was a kid. I've seen it, I don't know how many more times live. And the last time my wife and I saw it live, we were sitting in the audience and I said, I should send a note backstage that in case someone drops dead on there, I can take over because I know all the parts. I'm not
That's
a good singer, but I know all the parts.
Richard, me and you have a lot in common because yeah. Yeah, if I see like a filming location, I'll always say to my partner, should I go and ask them if they need like a
You know?
I'm ready for my close up. Yeah.
So we don't think that Heated Rivalry was a fluke. I don't think that Trailer Park Boys was a fluke. I don't think Letterkenny, Son of a Critch. I don't think that Schitt's Creek was a fluke. I think they're great shows that show what we can do in this country. I think, to sort of harken back to an earlier part of our conversation, that the risk that we have here isn't with the artists and it's not with our capability of actually creating really compelling content. It's with the money people.
That's right. But more shows like this, and they're going to have less reason to push back.
Yeah. The only thing I'm upset about with Heated Rivalry is that season 2, you know, which should be like, it should be on in 3 weeks to keep up the momentum, isn't going to be out till 2027. So it's going to be a year. And I know that a lot of shows take that kind of time, but look at The Pit. The Pit went off the air a few months ago and they're coming back on early January with the second season, just to make sure that they keep that momentum going. And that upsets me about Heated Rivalry.
It is important. And you know what? Actually, now that you mention it, there's one thing that gets me too. And maybe we need to figure this out. The text messaging, I get it because that's how a lot of communication happens now. But that is preventative a little bit. So many scenes of just text messaging back and forth. We have to figure this out for art. And my suggestion is we as a society should stop text messaging.
I'm all for that. It's interesting because a lot of movies now are starting to use text messaging and FaceTiming and all that sort of thing as a plot device and using it on screen, and I've yet to find one where it works really effectively.
It's just so cinematic. So like I said, I think in order to help artists in the future make art about the now, let's just stop text messaging.
Let's play a game. This is a game called Greenlight. Here's how it works. I'm going to pitch you a Canadian television show idea, and then you have to tell me whether you think it will fly or not. I'll start. I'll give you one, then you give me one, and we'll go back and forth. So the first one that we have here, a small-town hockey superstar falls in love with his biggest rival, and the whole league melts down. Do you think that'll work?
I'm going to say that's a little too close to Heated Rivalry.
I think that's the joke here.
A sharp political satire where the prime minister is constantly outsmarted by their own staff.
I think that we've already seen that in the show Veep, have we not? It depends on the how you play the prime minister in this, but I also have a feeling that you could probably rip pages out of history books and make them fit into this format quite easily. So I'm going to say I don't think it's a satire so much as it is a historical drama.
How about the prime minister falls in love with a pop star?
I like that. I would watch that.
I know it's stranger than fiction.
All right, here's a sci-fi thriller about a Toronto tech company that builds an AI which decides Canada should run the world. What do you think?
I think the more Black Mirror-ish vibes, the better, for sure. But also this could be a little too close to home, so we'll see. Handled with kid gloves.
Yeah, I also I don't trust AI enough to allow that to make those kind of decisions.
Agreed. A multi-generational immigrant family running a roadside motel, but told as a messy, power-driven family drama. So like Succession.
Yeah, I was going to say like Succession inside a roadside motel. I would watch the shit out of a show like that. I would tune in at the edge of my seat. I would want to know, where the power struggles are happening. Are they happening in the front office, or are like all the maids who make up the room? Are they fighting about having to, clean up after the terrible people? I did a show one time where we interviewed maids from various hotels and motels, mostly. There's a call-in segment. And the stories that I heard absolutely made my skin crawl. And
perfect drama.
So perfect drama, I'm all for it. Okay, here's one for you. A dark comedy about the Canadian economy quietly collapsing, noticed by only 2 exhausted public servants.
I mean, these are getting pretty close to home. Yeah, let's do it. Let's do that yesterday or 10 years ago, actually. A prestige crime series where the villain is a beloved Canadian institution nobody wants to criticize.
Oh, I love this. Like, I know we're playing these for laughs, but I actually would watch this. I would watch a show about someone who is beloved. Imagine, and this is the first name that popped into my head, but Mr. Dress Up. And I loved Ernie Coombs and I loved Mr. Dress Up. Please don't at me about this. But imagine that you're following Mr. Dress Up, and when he's not, with Casey and Finnegan, he's using the tickle trunk for other things. And I just would watch that. That would be appointment. I would binge it. I would project it onto the side of my building so that everyone else could watch it with me.
I'm into it too.
So Mr. Dress Up, I know I keep going off on these tangents, but I interviewed him years ago. And at the end of the interview, I said to Mr. Dress Up, when I was a kid, I wrote away to you and you sent me a black and white postcard that had a little inscription from you, and then it was signed Mr. Dress Up. And I said, I carried it around for years, and in one move or another recently, it's gone missing. I've lost it. And I said, I'm kind of heartbroken about it. Not even a week later, I get a letter from Mr. Dress Up, and it's got a new postcard, a new color postcard, and the black and white one that I described to him, signed again, for old time's sake, from Mr. Dress Up.
Oh my God. A perfect human being.
He was. And, so please, I'm not suggesting that he is a terrible person secretly. I loved him, and let's move on. Okay.
That's the whole point. If you did it, it would have to be someone like that. You know what I mean?
It would have to be someone like that.
And I owe my whole personality to Mr. Dress Up. I mean, look at me. I clearly dress from a tickle trunk.
Here is the final one. A hockey town that loses its team and turns into a weird political battleground over what Canadian identity actually is.
I like that.
I think it's a reality show that we're living in real time right now, only without the cameras. Yeah. Here's my pitch. A cooking show, but they only make tortilla. It's a reality series, but they only make poutine and tortilla and bear claws. That's it. That's all they make.
Listen, you just need to put one Acadian person on TV, and that's it. It's a hit.
I'm all for it. I am all for it. Sarah, great to talk to you.
Oh, great to talk to you, Richard. This is one of my, favorite times of the week, obviously. And thank you all for listening. You better be following, subscribed already on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcast. We will be back weekly now that we're back after the holidays.
Yeah, we're not going anywhere. And we're not going to talk to members of CSIS or any of the things that I described off the top of the show. This is going to be a much different thing. Next week,
Richard, was I easier or harder interview?
Just different. All right, see you soon.
Bye. Until next week.